So I'll go ahead, and if it's all right with you, Amy, I'll go ahead and get started.
Yes, most definitely.
And then, because I want to make sure to leave plenty of time for questions and discussion if people have them. So I found out about edpuzzle when I was at a case studies teaching conference last fall, and I was just like, how have I not ever heard about this? This is super amazing. And here, we have some handouts here, and they're getting some knives for the sandwiches for us because they made them enormous. So we will make sure we have enough for everybody. So I was telling Amy about it, and she's like, can you come and talk at CTE about this, because it's really a neat thing. So what I'm going to do is probably kind of go back and forth between my computer here and just kind of a discussion to kind of highlight some of the things that I've used edpuzzle for. So big picture, kind of 30,000-foot view. edpuzzle is a program that allows you to take any video content, whether you find something on YouTube, whether you find something, or whether you make something yourself, and allow you to embed questions in it, and then make it into an assignment. So that's kind of the two main things that allows you to do. So I've used this as to kind of highlight here 4 things that I'll kind of talk about. Especially as we have fewer minutes now in our classes total than when we had fewer class periods that were longer, right? So even though we went to more class periods with it being 50 minutes, we actually lost a significant amount of time if you did the math on that. And so for many of us trying to find out how we make up that time, sometimes it might be easy if we take some of the content that's maybe intro content and we move it outside of the classroom so that we can spend more time in the classroom working with our students. So that whole kind of concept of blended learning using sort of a flipped classroom model is something I'm going to just start with. And I'm glad that some people from, I know I talked to Tyler about this, that he's like, edpuzzle sounds really cool. I said, Tyler, you should come to this presentation today.
I'm liking it quite a bit.
Well, and selfishly too, right now I have to keep deleting. I have a free account, right, which gives you a limited number. It gives me 25 videos. So what that means is if I want to do a new one, I have to pick which of my favorite children I delete off so that I can put a new one up. So I would love, if there's enough people that are interested in this, that we could, say, hey, this is something that a lot of faculty would find benefit in using. Can we get a site license for the university? And I think it's like $65 a month for the entire university. So it's not ridiculously, I mean, you map that out, it's like $750 a year, but still it's not a huge amount of money if it's something that faculty would find valuable. So again, moving intro content outside the classroom, moving kind of prerequisite content outside the classroom. So a lot of elementary schools, I know my kids have this in their classes where they will give a pretest for something and find out, hey, do people really understand this? Because if they understand it, maybe I don't need to take valuable class time and work through it. And so it's kind of a way to assess that before you might kind of have time in the classroom. I use it a lot in my lab classes to deliver pre-lab because we might only have a 2 or a 3 hour time period for labs. And so to be able to deliver that content outside of lab and make sure that when they come in, they really know what they're doing has been really helpful. The students really say that they like it too. I go through and I answer all of the pre-lab questions with the video so that we often have pre-labs that we give them in labs that they have to do, but they probably copy off of each other. They do all kinds of other things. And so it's nice that, okay, no, just watch the video. Everybody has to watch it because everybody has to have an account, and then there's an accountability, which I'll talk about. But then they get all the answers for the pre-lab if they watch the video, so that I really know that they do it. Do you have a question?
I did. 1, where do you get your videos? And 2, have you ever made your own videos?
Lots of places, and I'm going to show you all the places I get videos, and I'll show you. So I get them from YouTube if it's something that I want to utilize. If there's, whether it's a crash course video, which is great for science, or a TED Talk or something like that. I do make a lot of my own videos, and so I'll show a couple of them that I've made that's on there. And then I actually just used it. Amy and I were talking before about, this is kind of our conference season. And so I've had to miss a couple of classes. And so how I've actually had a makeup class and then have accountability with it with students having to complete their edpuzzle assignment. So this is edpuzzle. So again, if you just go to, you guys, it might be hard to read the text on there, but edpuzzle.com is, and I should have had the link on here. So it's edpuzzle.com is the website. It's free to sign up for an account. So again, I have an account that I will log in with. And I have, I made a class again here for CTE Workshop. So if you wanted to access any of the videos that we're going to utilize here, and hopefully we can see these well enough. I'm going to start out by just kind of, for anybody who's not familiar with what blended learning is or like what a flipped classroom is, I'm just going to have a neat little video that I'll show here that actually is an edpuzzle video. And so sometimes I will like using edpuzzles in class as a way you want to show some video content, but then you want to prompt with a question. And so this is just an opportunity to do that. So we'll kind of walk through. So this is not a video. So again, to answer, I'll highlight where I got videos. This is one that I just pulled from online. This is, do you use Osmosis at all? It's a neat website that has a lot of science content. But they happen to have something on blended learning. So I'm just going to play this and you can kind of see. Down at the bottom here, it kind of highlights where questions are embedded. So I've got 6 questions embedded in this little 6-minute video that'll allow us to kind of prompt our discussion as we move forward here. One of the things that's important that you can set or not set, the default is that students cannot fast forward, which is I think a huge thing with this, because you might assign them a video to watch, but if all you might have is record that they logged into it on your Blackboard site, you don't know if they really watched it. And by embedding questions in, and I always put a question at the very, very end, that means they can't complete the assignment until it's been to the very, very end of the video. And so you can have all kinds of questions. You can have open-ended questions. They have multiple choice questions, which are really nice because edpuzzle will grade those for you, and then you can export a gradebook, so you don't even need to do anything. The open-ended ones, you can either grade them online or you can export it. It exports it as an Excel sheet, so if it's a lot of text, it might be a little bit onerous to kind of read and grade. Or you can have notes that you sort of embed in there. So we'll just kind of watch this to learn a little bit about blended learning, and there's some questions embedded.
This describes the flipped classroom model because it flips what students do at home and in the classroom.
Oops, hang on. I don't think it started where it was supposed to. So hang on, and then I've got ads. Click to start blocking ads. Why is it doing that? All right, well, maybe it's not going to go away yet. But the first question that I had, let me rewind this because for some reason it didn't start at the, that's because I was toggling down here for questions. There we go.
It's not a fair fight. Your company bullies inflate prices.
And if you have a YouTube video, you might have ads that you have to watch through.
This describes the flipped classroom model because it flips what students do at classroom.
Sorry.
Learning is a way of teaching that combines online.
Here we go. Now I'm ready, sorry.
Blended learning is a way of teaching that combines online resources with in-person instruction to create a more individualized learning environment. With blended learning, instructors often make some or all of the content available to the students outside of class time. Taking this to the extreme, students can consume all of the traditional lecture material at home at their own pace, and during class time they can complete work assignments traditionally given as homework during class, as well as other activities like team-based or project-based learning. This describes the flipped classroom model because it flips what students do at home and in the classroom.
So it's probably going to be hard to read this. So an open-ended question that I embedded here says, has anyone thought or actually tried flipping their classroom? So who here has flipped their classroom a little bit? I thought Amy has. Anyone maybe thinking about it? I'm assuming maybe you might be thinking a little bit about it because you're here.
Is there any evidence that this flipping class increased the learning?
Yeah, there's certainly lots of educational literature out there that shows that you have greater mastery of content and so forth. So yeah, there's a whole body of literature that's out there that it is really important.
I want to add, I took a teaching engineering certificate in higher education, and they focus a lot on flipping the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So where I come from at Villanova, we already have a class that is totally flipped. So students just come into the class to solve assignments and teamwork.
Yes.
And the efficiency of the students and their learning abilities increased a lot.
Well, and we all
but it doesn't apply to every course. That's the problem.
True.
There are courses with, like for us in cybersecurity, for example, you cannot just rely on students to learn by themselves because they have to ask a lot of questions, understand a lot of things. But it can be applied. You can have the class half flipped, half not.
And that's what this whole idea of a blended environment is there is that important component of having that face-to-face interaction, right? And we all know how many of us, I love when I have review sessions with my students right before an exam, because they're finally able to have a conversation about things, because they've sort of done the prerequisite learning that was necessary to have an in-depth conversation. So the idea with flipping your classroom is to get to that point so you have those productive discussions in class. You can ask the questions that the students are ready to provide feedback on. But as we'll talk about in just a couple of questions here, there are some challenges with how you have students be accountable for their part of this relationship. All right, so again, some of you have done it, many of you might be thinking about it. So I think there's a way to, we'll just say yes.
Are those graded? So the questions that you put in, you assign the answer to? So then
Yes. For the open-ended, I don't think it can't match your open-ended, but the multiple choice, it grades for you. So there's those two kinds of questions that you can put in.
Typically, when a teacher creates a lecture, they have to make an educated guess about the knowledge level of their audience, since they have limited information about what each student knows or remembers. If a lecture is too difficult, then most of the students will be lost. If it's too easy, then most of the students will be bored. So teachers typically end up lecturing to the mythical middle of the class and hoping for the best.
So my question says, do you feel as though this is how you lecture, to this mythical middle? I feel like it's mythical middle and sometimes towards the too easy, right? And then you feel like you're not doing a service to the students who really could handle some kind of more in-depth knowledge. So again, we'll just say yes again and move on.
By putting their content online, students can move at their own pace. Those who are familiar with the material can go through it quickly, even watching it at an increased speed. While others who aren't as familiar with it can pause to take notes, re-watch it, or call up other resources to help them understand a concept being explained.
I'm just going to pause there for a second to say, again, there's no way to kind of like speed up watching videos with edpuzzle. You can set it so that they can fast forward if they want, but again, if the intent is for you to have them watch the entirety of it, most of my videos I don't allow skipping. One of the things that I've noticed, though, this whole idea of pausing, rewatching, or taking notes on things, if you have a very type A student, what you might have as a 5-7 minute video turns into 60 minutes for them, because they literally transcribe the entirety of what you say, which is not your intent, and it's not them learning how to take notes, for example, if they're at a lecture where they don't have PowerPoints provided for them.
An additional benefit for all students is that they can choose to engage with the material when they're most alert, which satisfies both the early bird and the night owl. And for those students that have disabilities, they can take the breaks that they need without having to worry about missing out or distracting others.
So, kind of from what you just said about type A students and everything, do you mostly do this maybe over a weekend where they have multiple days to engage in this, or are you doing it, like, are you teaching Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes?
So I'm thinking about doing this. I have not yet done this where there's like a daily requirement. I'm going to look at my biochemistry curriculum this summer, and I'm thinking about doing it where it literally will be like a 3 to 5 minute intro with a few questions to get them primed with some prerequisite knowledge so we can talk about the things that are a little bit more involved in class. So I tried doing this. I didn't have edpuzzle or things like that to do before. I tried doing this a few years ago, and it was not good. But again, I had those students that they either didn't watch the video. I had two ends of the spectrum. They didn't watch the video at all, or the students that were just so stressed out because it took me, an hour to do this when it was really, a 5 minute video. And so this, I feel like I've got some of the tools and technology to help me do this better. But for things that it's like a pre-lab lecture, they have a week to watch it, and then I'll have a due date for that. So a lot of this is requiring you to do things in enough time in advance so that the students do have time that, to watch it. Does that make sense?
Amy, is it only laptop or computer based? Can they download an app for it?
Good question. I don't know if there's an app for it, but if you could get onto a web browser But that's a good question. I don't know to find out how platform kind of friendly it is. I don't know. Tyler, do you have to know? Okay.
I'll check
So I have two more quick questions.
Yes.
Like with the student who's freaking out, do you suggest to them just watch the 7 minutes, like take a deep breath, just watch it, and then go back and take notes on things, like pause when you think you
And I think you can set it up how you want. So I'll show you an example of like a 2.5-minute video that I have as kind of a primer, and I embed 3 questions in it. And so it's really just intended to get them to think. There's an app for it. Awesome. There is an app for it. Yep.
It's got 3-star ratings and any major issues.
And then your biochem, like you're thinking this summer, all of those intro videos, would that be something you would have to make?
So a lot of things I already have, and so I'll show you some of the things I have. But more for biochem, what I would likely be doing is doing for each learning unit that I have, doing a little like 3 to 4 minute intro. And then for some of the prerequisite knowledge, and I'll show you one of the videos that I've already done. It's like, okay, some of you may have already learned how to draw carbohydrate structures in another class, so we're not going to go over it here. You make the decision whether or not you feel like you need to watch this in depth. I have a little worksheet with it to kind of practice, but for some people that might be something they already know, but we all can't move on together until everybody's good at drawing their structures of carbohydrates or amino acids or whatever it happens to be. But that allows you to take students who might be at different entry points in terms of their prerequisite knowledge and kind of get them up to the same point so you're ready to move on and apply that knowledge together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, that can be a real challenge.
Amy, just
Yes.
one other question. So what if you don't have any kind of engagement throughout the video? How do you know that they interact with the video, if you don't have little intervals set up?
You don't.
Okay.
And that's why I try to pepper in, and I think I kind of commented in here at one point, like peppering questions in throughout the video forces students to watch and listen, and then answers, and that allows you to assess their mastery of concepts.
Okay.
And I try not to make the questions necessarily like super difficult or involved. Multiple choice is great because then I don't even need to do anything except go into edpuzzle and look at the percentages. And of course, they will always freak out because if they got one wrong, it's okay. Like I set the bar at like 75%, which just tells me that they did watch it. They couldn't guess and kind of get them right. But so I love the multiple choice one because then there's really not anything on my end that I need to do afterwards. It's a little bit more work up front than just writing an open-ended question, but then there's nothing you need to do on the end. So I'll show you the Gradebook platform in a little bit here.
How much of your weight of your course do you assign for these videos as pre-labs?
So, for example, I only did one pre-lab. I wanted to test it and see how it worked for pre-lab, so it was half of their pre-lab. So the pre-lab was 50 points. 25% of it was just going through and answering the questions on edpuzzle. But again, the other incentive was I'm telling you exactly how to do the pre-lab questions in the video. So you should get 50 out of 50. So I tried that, and the students said they loved it. They're like, can you do that for the rest of them? So I am going to do that for my lab class over the summer, so that I'll have them all ready to go.
I can see that being an issue with my lecture, students missing one point and then they've hung up. I did something similar, not the same platform, but they were very particular.
But if you set the bar and say you have to have 75% mastery and then you get credit for the assignment, then that kind of takes the fear off of, oh my gosh, I missed one, or I clicked the wrong thing because I'm doing it on my phone and my screen's cracked so it didn't touch in the right spot. All the things that we hear. So my question that I had embedded here is, what is an appropriate time frame for this out-of-class work? So I think we've sort of talked about this already. Think of this both from the length of a video you share and the time it will take to work through it. So I'm going to jump ahead and I'll show you all these examples. But when I scheduled a makeup class, so the edpuzzle video I have there, I actually assigned for my Gen Chem class. So when you ask the question, how much videoing will I have to do? For a lot of my classes, I have a whole collection of stuff that maybe has just been Blackboard based. So for my Gen Chem class, every single problem that we work through in class, I have a video of me working through it outside of class. It's literally like 40 hours worth of stuff, but I did it 4 years ago and it made my life so much easier in Gen Chem. But again, the students weren't necessarily watching, it was a select few. Since I've used them now, when I had to miss this class for a conference, I took 3 of those videos, which totaled, about 35 minutes in length. And then I embedded questions that were pretty straightforward. The questions just basically were on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you feel the calculations, how do you feel about these calculations? What part of the problem made the most sense to you? What part of the problem was most challenging? So I figured it might take them about 5 minutes to answer those more qualitative questions. And that was the last question as soon as the last second of the video ended. But I had 3 of these problems. So rather than me working through 3 problems in class, because I had already had video solutions for these problems, you go watch them. And you know, you have to sit there and watch them because you have to answer a question at the end. Now, if they paid attention or not, I can't control that with that video because it wasn't really content-based. But it's like, I can't control whether you pay attention if I'm going over it in class anyway. So here's your opportunity to get credit for attendance in class. So to get credit for attendance, they had to have completed that. But that one was not yes or no. It's just they had to just answer those 3 questions.
Would this work with a PowerPoint slideshow?
So I will show you an example of one. So there are some like extra things that you have to, so I have, whether it's, I'll show you some videos that I made using my iPad where I annotate, or you can do screen capture with a PowerPoint presentation. Mercyhurst has access to software that allows you to screen capture doing things. And Tyler, I'm certain could tell you a lot more about that than I could. But yeah, there's lots of, and I know Amy had you given a presentation before on how to kind of use technology in your classroom in that way. I'm just going to say yes for this so I can move on.
Putting work assignments back in the classroom also has a number of benefits from a learning science perspective. A lot of students describe the frustration of feeling like they understand a concept in class, but then being confused when they go home and try to apply it to an assignment. This is also supported by research. We learn best through active work, not passive listening. Doing work assignments during class time means that teachers are available when students need them the most, when they're trying to apply their knowledge. Another place where students traditionally struggle is with out-of-class group work, because it can be hard to coordinate an in-person meetup as well as make sure those meetings are constructive. Moving group work into the classroom setting makes the logistics straightforward, and it also allows the instructor to keep an eye on group meetings and to help facilitate them if needed. An important aspect of all blended learning environments is that they're not intended to do away with face time in the classroom. Unlike online classes, where all of the material and interactions are online, blended classrooms count on face-to-face interactions between students and teachers. Instead of getting rid of these interactions, blended learning structures are intended to optimize them, moving the teacher from a passive sage on the stage, who delivers didactic lectures to a large audience, to a more active role as a guide on the side, who interacts one-on-one with students to help guide them in ways that might be impractical or impossible with a traditional teaching model. By doing this, blended learning classes move from a teacher-focused learning model to a student-focused learning model. In a traditional classroom, the approach is generally time-based, meaning the whole class moves at the same pace. All students get the same lesson on the same day, and are tested on that material at the same time. And then they all move on to the next topic regardless of their individual exam performance, or if they have gaps in their knowledge. Blended classrooms are flexible enough to allow the use of a mastery-based model, which acknowledges that not all students are going to get the material at the same time. Some students might need more time to understand a topic, while at other times those same students will speed ahead. Letting students as much time as they need on a topic, and letting them decide when they're ready to be tested. Blended classes can help to ensure that students move forward only when they've shown that they can apply what they've learned with confidence.
All right, so my next question says, what are some challenges you think might come with a blended learning environment? So I'm going to just prompt and pause for a second here and say, I've embedded 2 different kinds of questions in here. One is sort of a reflective, like you share something and then you pose a question that asks them to think about something you've already asked. That's a way to kind of test mastery. You can also put a question in that's preemptive. So you know that something's going to be discussed, but you can pose the question beforehand and you can kind of gauge where people are at. So again, this video was intended to be something I'd use in class. You know, the prompts come up as a way to, you know, have discussion in class. And again, we all know that there's great videos that are out there and we find ourselves pausing and stopping videos if we have something. This just does it automatically for you. And again, it doesn't have to be something you use for grading in that sense. It just can be a tool to allow you to stop and start videos where you want, so you don't have to be sitting there right at the podium. So I think we've talked about a bunch of these already, so I'm just going to play this. But again, it was just to highlight, we are going to talk about different challenges, and they're going to talk about that next in the video.
Blended learning, though, like any teaching approach, brings with it some important challenges. Because this approach depends on technical resources, they have to be affordable, reliable, and easy to use for both the students and the teachers. Oftentimes, there's also a learning curve that has to be navigated, especially for those that have never used technology in the classroom. Another challenge is making sure that the materials are being reliably and independently consumed by the students, and they're coming to class prepared. This can be incentivized by closely tying in-class work assignments to the content that's being delivered online, and can often be tracked with learning platforms.
So my question is, can you think of any learning platforms we might be able to use here? Hint, hint. So again, edpuzzle can be a great way to ensure that we are having consumption of our information, and then kind of tie it into things that are important for the class with their grade.
Finally, one of the biggest challenges to blended learning is that it really changes the role of the teacher to that of a coach, and puts students in the driver's seat of their own learning, teaching them how to think as well as what to learn. This shift is an important one, and requires buy-in from both the teacher and the student to be successful. When it's done right, though, blended learning can lead to a much more enjoyable and effective learning experience for both parties. Alright, so as a quick recap, blended learning combines online resources with in-person instruction. And one type of blended learning is the flipped classroom, where students consume their lecture resources at home and spend class time doing in-class activities. This allows the teacher to change from a passive sage on the stage to a more active guide on the side, facilitating a student-focused learning model.
So my question is ready to see some more examples? All right, so I'm going to, again, just show you a few examples of things that I've done. The first one I'll show you is kind of moving intro content outside of the classroom. So I'm going to show you kind of a beginning video that I have for the second learning unit in my Gen Chem class on properties of mixtures. So I try to make these videos really short, 3 to 5 minutes, because, forcing them to watch something for too long, like that's probably even past their attention span. And again, just highlighting the default is to prevent skipping. So again, it prevents, I don't know what I was typing here, prevents the video or credit accessing but not watching video. So it prevents them getting credit for accessing but not watching the video. And again, peppering questions in throughout the video forces students to watch and listen, and answering allows you to assess their mastery of the concepts. So again, I always ask the question at the end to force them to watch the entirety. Multiple choice is the easiest, and edpuzzle can grade for you. They've got open-ended questions where it allows you to gather the best feedback. And again, you can grade those either online or export for offline. And again, you can also add comments and notes. So I'm going to go back to this one, and I'm going to show. And so this is also just to highlight the different kinds of videos I have. So this one is just one where I'm just introducing content.
The first is,
I guess because I had started some of these, they all.
Chapter 13 is on properties of mixtures. So we'll talk about solutions and then colloids. So we build on a lot of the information that we learned in Chapter 12 on intermolecular forces between two of the same molecules. And we'll ask what happens when we start mixing different things together and we make solutions. So 5 skills again for this chapter. The first is really just a qualitative understanding of solution formation. So we'll talk about D and S words, so making sure we understand the difference between dissolving and dissociating.
So then I'll pause and I'll say, okay, what is, and this might be something they could answer here, or maybe that's something that they need to turn in. What's the difference between dissolving and dissociating? Use table sugar and table salt to explain your answer. So they might have to type in a little thing. And again, I'm not going to go through the rest of this video. It's just, it's a little over 3 minutes long. But again, this was, I've got videos at the beginning of each learning unit that are really the 30,000-foot view. Like, what is this about? And I always have 5 things that are important to learn in this chapter. So we introduce them at the beginning, and then as we go through, we kind of talk about them. I'll take a second here and just kind of highlight for grading what the gradebook looks like. This is really hard. Let me see if I can, yeah.
So I use Camtasia with my PowerPoint slides in the back of them.
Yes.
Box, and then I post those videos typically to YouTube.
Yep.
Can then those videos be embedded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'll show you in just a second. We'll get to that. Where you can get your videos. So that's same for me. I have a YouTube channel that I post all of my videos, and then you just go to YouTube and then you just pull it. It'll pull it right from there for you.
And then do you just slide to where you want the question to
Yes.
be?
So let me show you Gradebook real quick, and then we'll go to how you actually import a video. So you can see here that it'll show you the total amount of time that was spent. So again, if they were supposed to have about 45 to 50 minutes for that class period, I can see she really didn't watch all of it, but most of the other ones did. And you can see here's ones that show things that needed to be graded. So you can click on individual assignments, and it'll show you, whether or not they turned it in. You can look at all kinds of different levels. You can say, all right, let me look at all the questions. And so, for this specific question, 21 out of 39 sort of got it right. So there's lots of ways that you can delve into different ways to look at the grading. Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to add about this. I don't think so. So let me take a second and I'll just kind of show you how you'd actually make a video. Yes?
Good question. When you add a video or when you upload your own content, do you control the privacy of your own? Because like now I just signed up to check it out here while you're talking. I can see all your videos. What if you want your class to be your class?
I don't know. Maybe I'm going to ask Tyler if he knows anything about that just from an online space.
So basically, log in using the code that she has on the paper.
No, I just created an account and I said I'm from Mercier. I can see there's 12 professors who are using it. Clicking on the name of the professor, you can see all the comments. So what if we're discussing a project that I don't want to leak out, for example?
I don't know the answer for that right now. This might because it's kind of free and open source.
If it's a free source, it's probably wide, whereas
yeah, but
like
like
we have
your IP is anyone, then I can take mine from MIT and then take the projects from MIT professor, right?
So this might be something then that it's not appropriate for content that's sensitive content. So, but I'll see if I can.
I'll check it out as well.
Yeah.
I have my mobile here. So
Yeah.
I can check.
Okay. But you're right. I think this is meant because if you go here and you look at all the different content, it'll show you things that are kind of trending in science, trending in Pennsylvania. You can look at specific, edpuzzles. So if you don't even want to make one yourself, you don't want to make the questions or do anything, you can take someone else's edpuzzle that they've done with all their embedded questions and then just say, hey, I want to use that in my class, and then take it and use that. So you can use existing ones that are already out there, but I think the understanding is that you then contribute to that body of knowledge. So if it is something that's, sensitive information that you wouldn't want someone else to use, then this might not be the right.
Yeah, like intellectual property stuff or designing algorithms or whatever, right?
Right. So if it has any IP, concerns, this might not be the place for it for students. But again, you can look at, there's popular channels, whether it's Khan Academy, YouTube, you can just kind of like go up here and search something. So again, if you wanted to do flipped classroom, you can just kind of find all kinds of things that are up here. You could enter in a specific YouTube channel or YouTube video description, and you can sort of find it that way. And so once you find something here, you'll see that there's edit, watch, or copy. So these are ones that actually already have questions associated with it, if you see that little icon that's there. Or you can kind of come down and let's go to YouTube. And then you can just find all of these. Now these ones don't have anything, so you can actually come here and I'll show you to address Amy's question. Let's say we wanted to take this video here, this 3-minute video here on the flipped classroom model. We'll say edit, and then you come up here to the top and there's 4 different things you can do. Ideally, if it's like a 30-minute video, but you only have 2 minutes that you want to have for your class, you can drag these little scrubber bars and you can kind of take the portion that you want to have for your class. So that's the first thing is, okay, how do you want to crop the video? Just down to what you might want to look at. If you wanted, you could add, and I've never really done this, you can put a voiceover. So if it's a video that doesn't have any narration with it, you can add kind of your own sort of description.
Is it you?
You can add notes to it if you want, but this is the quizzes part. So again, you can watch this.
Classroom is a new method of teaching that is turning the traditional classroom.
So find where you want to have a question. You'll say, okay, I want to embed a question here. So you just click on the question. Here's an open-ended question that's the default. Here is the multiple choice one, and you just kind of enter in what your correct answer would be. If you want to have more than one question that you add kind of in a certain section after you fill in that question, you can add plus, and that way it won't let them advance on until you ask the next question. So you can have multiple questions at the same stop point. You can have multiple kinds of questions at the same stop point. Or if you just wanted to have a comment, you could put a comment in at that stop point. But then once you add in all of your stuff, you can say finish, and then you can choose to assign it to a specific class if you want. Or you can just say, I'm not done yet, I'll assign it later. Here is again, the default is prevent skipping, which I usually tend to do because I don't want them skipping through. One thing you do want to make sure you do is don't assign it until you feel like you're totally ready, because if students start doing it and then you realize you needed to make a change, you can't change it because some students have already started working on it. I realized that the hard way when I had a typo in one of the questions, and I went back to do it, and it's like, no, you can't do it. It's already been assigned, and students are working on it. So, you know, you might want to just kind of make sure that it's all ready to go kind of before that.
Is that a video that you uploaded yourself?
So, yep, I'll show you. So that one that you just saw that I was just kind of, that was one that I just made myself. I used.
You uploaded it here or through YouTube?
I uploaded it through YouTube, so
So it's public.
It is. Now that's a good question, because if you have.
I think if you upload it here, you still have the option to control and see it. Whereas through
right.
YouTube, you can't control it.
Well, you can make a private.
If you put it unlisted, it's not important.
That's a good question. I'll have to look and see if because on my YouTube channel, there's ones that are.
So I think you can
private.
If you put it on YouTube as unlisted or private, you can't see it everywhere else. So this platform won't see it all.
Probably right.
Now, if you put it here, you might even controlling who can see it here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great platform. I don't think they don't have privacy rules. They should have.
And I don't know the answer to that, but I'll see if I can. I'll see if I can find that out. So let's see. I'm going to go back to just to kind of show you guys a couple of other examples of things, because they were asked like, okay, what are the different things that you do? So this was one. This is when I flipped my lab class. And I think I had written down some times that just were kind of to show that were interesting. So this one was a longer one. This was like over an hour, but this was, again, meant to be a lecture. So this is an example of one that was done on PowerPoint, and that I was recording my iPad so that I could write on here.
Average here of 330, but we kind of wanted to multiply here, we get that there's 990 nucleotides.
So I have an iPad Pro, and I know, Amy, you've shown with yours, but it essentially, I love it because it's the size of a notebook paper. And so I hook this up to my computer, and so I record on my computer, but I have this as the input, and then I write with my Apple Pencil. So maybe I mean, and I know Amy's done one already, but what we can do.
There's a great deal on them today if you want. For $50. Really?
Wow.
Just $250.
So there's, and again, I'm happy to, certainly probably not till next semester, but maybe in the fall, Amy, I'm happy to do another, CTE thing on how to use, how to do a video of your PowerPoint. I'll show you the old school way that I used to do things.
You can't just upload a PowerPoint and make it work.
I'll check into this. Like, if you were to just say, here's my, I don't think you can take a PowerPoint file and throw it into edpuzzle. It has to be an existing video. So the question is how do you make your PowerPoint? And Tyler probably might have more answers to easy way, just because those of you who don't know Tyler, he's in the online kind of learning space, and he's over there too. Yes, thought I saw you come in.
Screencast has a free software that you don't have to download anything additional, and sometimes you go back and it will pop up and it'll ask you to select.
Right.
And
so I'm actually I'm using Screencast, and Mercyverse has a site license for Screencast-O-Matic, so you can get like the full version. And I'm actually recording this right now So that Amy was saying there's people at Northeast who are like, oh, can she come out here and do this? And so maybe we'll just have the posted video that until I can get out there, you could watch this. So there is a lot of neat technology, but again, that's another thing that I'd be happy to do a CTE event in the fall, in the beginning of the fall, so that people could think about, or you can let me know. I'm here over the summer if you just want to kind of see how to do it. And that's what they talked about. There is a little bit of a learning curve to be able to get your videos. So again, you can find something that's existing, but you have to think about your own privacy stuff if you're using your own stuff. So I've done ones where I'm just showing myself because I'm talking about something. I've done ones like I just showed you where it's a PowerPoint presentation, just because it's sort of interesting. And these are the ones that I am not going to redo because it would take me too long to do. Before I had, this was 4 years ago, and 40 hours worth of video that I'm not going to redo. This is how I used to do them. I literally had mounted my iPhone on a ring stand, a chemistry ring stand, and put my papers down there, and I wrote on them. So these are the ones that I have for my Gen Chem class. Now I post the full solution afterwards so that they can have it next to them if they can't see really well. But it shows me kind of going through, working through their problems. Right, because the problem when you have a static solution that you have is the students don't see how to work through it. They don't have the narration to go through it. So this was my solution when I did not have this technology to go through. But I'm going to be doing, the biochem students are like, why did you do this for us? All right, but now I have different technology to do it with. I don't need to sit there with my camera, like literally at my hands. But the students really like having you walk them through their problems. And that way if they missed it in class, or I'll tell them, listen in class. You know, if you're trying to write everything that I'm writing, you're not listening at the same time that you're writing. So watch me go through it. You'll have the solution posted online. And then if you feel like you need to rewatch the video after, you can rewatch the video. You can pause it. You can replay it. You know, and that works for you. So this is the kind of video. So I had 3 of these videos that totaled about 35 minutes, that when I had to miss my class for a conference, I said, you guys need to watch these 3 videos. I posted those 3 questions at the end. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you understand this? What was the most difficult thing? What was the easiest thing? Yes. Yep. Yes. So if I sort of go all the way to the end here.
And they can make this like full screen.
Yes. Yep. So again, the question that comes up, and you can see there's three questions here. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is most comfortable. How do you feel about calculations for this type? So then if they say that, it goes to the next one. What part of this problem made the most sense to you and why? And then the last question was, what was the most challenging? And so again, it was at the very end, so I knew that they had to watch or at least play the whole thing. But it's like, if you're going to have to sit there and like listen to me for 6 minutes, why don't you try to learn something? I'm showing you how to do the problem. But then I could also go through and I could see, oh, you know, 1, 1, 1, 1, like they all understood it. Oh, here was a 6. This person really didn't understand that very well. And then I can circle back with that student as well.
So you give them a follow-up question. So you gave this example, then you give a similar example.
So sadly, most of my exams and quizzes are like variations of these problems. But that's the disconnect, right? And I still haven't figured out how to fix that disconnect in class, where it's like, it makes sense when you do it in class. I watch your videos all the time, but then I can't do it myself. And that's a bigger question to throw out to all of you here. How do we bridge that gap? Because I worry sometimes if I provide them too much information that like they don't, if they don't have to do it enough on their own, they don't learn how to do it on their own, right? Nobody gets to be good playing basketball by just watching lots of basketball games, right? You have to get out there and practice the skills on your own. So how do we have them do that? So again, maybe it's having them do more problems where, you know, I don't know, that's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing to figure out. And especially for those of us who are in courses where it's not just kind of memorizing a set of terms or being able to kind of think critically about something, but there might be lots of right answers. It's like there's clearly a right answer for here, and you have to know how to get to it.
There does seem to be a disconnect. So this sounds kind of silly, but I hear to the I do, we do, you do philosophy. And it seems that there's a disconnect with the we do, you do.
Correct.
They're fine as long as they have a partner with that independent.
And
I think it's more so they're in their heads. Their dialogue is.
And I think it's hard because this culture of students, and I love that they're so collaborative, but they don't do enough on their own, where it's like you need to be in the library on your own studying. And studying is not really like a bunch of you sitting around with some pizza, like watching TV and trying to. It's not like studying often cannot be a social activity, or you have to get to a certain point on your own where it could be social. And then
teaching.
And that's the best way to learn, right? But then again, if you're not the one who's doing the teaching, you are still not doing it in the on your own sort of situation. And I think that's generational with this group of students though too. I feel like they really struggle figuring out how to do it on their own. And I don't know how to tell them how to do that. Like we can provide all the resources to try to make for the best. But even though the value of this face-to-face interaction with us and them in the classroom is really important in that, like you said, I do, we do, you do. Like I can't control the you do part of it. That's a critical component.
This reminds me, I'm smiling because I teach my math-based course this semester. And any time that it's like, okay, let's do some practice problems in class, obviously I show them first how to do the problem. And then I'll say, okay, you go do these two, right? Mm-hmm. I have students where, each has their book, they have a problem, that they're immediately talking to the person next to them. It is about the problem, but they want to talk it out. And I said, how can you be talking already? Like, there's no way you even finished reading the word problem, right? And I said, and it's just that. So I got to the point where I said, like, you cannot say anything out loud, but that's just it. There's some people who just want to, like, talk it out. And they say, this is how we do it, like, because it feels kind of like high school in that class because of the need for repetition. They literally have math problems they have to do every single class. And so many of them do it in a group setting, once again, not because they're copying off of each other, but they need that feeling of like, if I get stuck,
that validation,
somebody needs to unstick me, or when I get the answer, the validation of, did we get the same answer?
Right.
So in class, it kills them because I'm like, okay, you, at least 5 minutes, you can't say anything to anyone near you because like you need to figure out, you can figure it out.
Right, and you're right, this generation of students, I love that they're so collaborative, but they're still, when we assess them individually, right, that needs to be a critical component. I wanted to say one other thing just to kind of like plug a little bit of the online world, right? If you do work in this space to kind of create a blended environment for your class, it makes it that much easier if you wanted to have it be a course that was offered online. And so you can take some baby steps to kind of move towards, I'm going to try flipping a couple of concepts or something like that. But as the university is trying to find more and more opportunities for online courses, this is kind of a great way to take a step in that direction and then make it just that much easier to move all the way. And Tyler is a phenomenal person to help you with that. The whole office,
already started when you're using these, so
yep.
It's a lot easier. If you are doing blended, the one thing we always have to watch is that you don't put too much online. When you're doing anything that's technically considered blended to the university, which there are very few that are actually blended, you actually really have to watch your hours. It's 49% online. You have to have the other 50 one that has to stay on campus. Otherwise, you technically are becoming an online course, which doesn't match up with this card. So that's the only thing we have to watch. If you're not sure, we have documents with like time equivalencies that can help you with figuring out what's what if you do that too.
But I think a lot of what I've just done is try to figure out how do I maximize that 50 minutes times 3 times a week with my students, because I don't feel like it's me standing up there and just spitting knowledge out to you that you could get in a different space. It's allowing you to apply that knowledge and do problems, right? But again, when I tried to flip my class before, I really don't think I was doing it well, because you really do need to take a bunch of time beforehand and make sure that all of your pieces are kind of lined up and ready to go. And I didn't have that. There was a couple of times I was literally sitting, because we were traveling with soccer or whatever with the kids, and I was in the back of the car, like recording the video that the students needed to watch so I could make sure to have it up. This is not ideal. So I'm going to take time this summer and do this more, particularly for intro content, pre-lab content, and prerequisite knowledge. That is my goal, is to try to pick up more space in class with stuff that doesn't have to be in class.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned earlier about adding a note to the video.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible? Can you show that real quick?
Sure. So let's go back to just kind of trying to grab a video, and I'm just going to play here. Let's say we're going to edit this one, and at this point, I want to add.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. We'll see you. So add a comment. I just think you type a comment here. So we want to make note of this in the video. So I think if I just save that, and I'll just throw this in here and we'll see what it looks like. So what does it look like to the students? So they still see this little mark here says that something's going on. Oh, I can't fast forward. That was the default. Okay, we're going to have to watch an inspirational video about studying that will make us cry in order to get to my comment. I did not proof in any way, shape, or form what I was pulling up here. So then it stops and just puts a note in. You don't have to watch the rest of that video. I have not done comments, so I had no idea what it looked like. But yeah, just pauses it, puts your comment up, and then allows you to continue.
I'm assuming class students just add their emails, right?
Yeah, so you can send them a link. So again, if you go to classes and I go to students here, you can invite students by just kind of sending them this link. You can share it via email. So yeah, lots of different ways you can just invite students. One of the challenges I've had is if they, because it looked like there's a lot of students who hadn't completed it, but then they went back and they couldn't remember their login maybe, and so they signed in with a different name. Or so then you can have the same student where it's like I read through and I'm like, oh, you didn't finish it, but then they created a different account. So it's not really an easy way. I mean, it's just totally on them.
I think if you add them manually, then it's better.
True. I think you're right. I think you're right.
Export them
from your class roster. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This gives me so many different ideas of how I can use it.
Just noticed you